ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। वन्देऽहं श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जन्माद्यस्य तोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थे सुभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्म हृदय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। स्वस्ति अस्तु विश्वस्य खलः प्रसीदतां ध्यायन्तु भूतानि शिवं मिथो धिया मनश्च भद्रं भजताददोक्षजय आवेश्यतां नो मतिरप्यहेतुकी। So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, and chapter number 10. This is the story of King Bharat, and we read how he was caught by the gang of robbers to be sacrificed in front of Bhadrakali. But the deity of Bhadrakali broke and she manifested herself, and Bharat Maharaj was saved. So after that he just wandered in the forest. He did not come back. He has no intention of being with his family or anything. So when he was wandering like this, he met King Rahugana in another abnormal situation. How he was used to carry the palanquin, and then there was a dialogue. So that is what is being described here in the 10th chapter. Sri Shuka Uvacha, Sri Sukdev said, Ata Sindhu Savirapate Rahuganasya Vrajata Ikshumatyastate Tatakulpatina Shivika Vaha Purushan Anveshana Samaye Devena Upasaditaha Sadvijvara Uplabdha. So there was a king whose name was Rahugana, and he was ruling over the land called Sindhu, which is probably the area of Afghanistan now, or Pakistan. And he was a very pious king, and he was going to meet Kapila to have instructions from him. Kapila is the founder of Sankhya philosophy. He was living at that time somewhere in the Himalayas. So he was going with his troop. He was sitting in the palanquin. People used to go in the chariot, kings, or in the palanquin. Now because he was going to meet a sage, he did not want to go in a chariot, which looks disrespectful. He also could not just walk because he was a king, so he went on a palanquin, and probably he will stop it outside the ashram, 100 to 200 feet away, and then walk to the ashram and meet the sage. And he had its servants with him. But when he was going, the palanquin was not carried always by the same carriers. There was a tribe of people who were called Kahar. They still exist. And their job was to carry palanquin, also bring water from the well to those people's house, or in the marriages, functions. This is what they used to do. So there were these carriers in different villages, and if the king is going in palanquin, then the kahar or carrier of one village, they will carry the king to the next village, and then the people from the next one will take over. Otherwise, carrying all the time, they will get tired. And there used to be a person in charge, who is called here as Kulpati. He is in charge of these kahars. So he will make arrangements that they are ready. So they were moving, and they reached a village, and in that village at that time there were not sufficient people. Then he need maybe 8 of them to carry. So one person was missing. So then this Kulpati, this in charge chief, he was looking for someone, and he saw this somehow by the will of the Lord. Esha piva yuva saminanango gokharvadhura bodhumalamiti purva vishti grihitai saya grihita praspam atadaram vahasilkam sarmanibhava. So he happened to see Bharat, Jad Bharat, who was stout, good looking, although not well dressed. So he also thought that he must not be a Brahman, because he was not dressed properly. His thread we saw was already dirty. Maybe he did not pay notice to him. He used to lie down on the ground, so there was dust. He was covered. So he thought he also must be. This computer is not on. System. Yes. It says low battery. So they engaged him, and because Jadbharat was just wandering and he did not care for anything, if somebody asked him to do, he will do whatever they tell him. He never objected to anything. When these robbers caught him and they wanted to sacrifice him, he didn't complain. He was just sat there like a goat. Now also they caught him and they tried to engage him in the carrying of the palanquin. So he didn't say, why shall I do it or nothing. He agreed. And there are people who are called servants or who were paid regular salary, but there were also people who were given maybe monthly payment, and whenever there was a need to use them, they will use them. That was called vrishti in Sanskrit. So these kahars or these palanquin carriers, they were also Vrishtis. So he was also engaged like that, which means that he is not going to be paid anything extra. So yada hi द्विजवरस्य ईशुमात्र अवलोकन अनुगते न समाहिता पुरुष गति तदा विषमगताम स्वशिविकाम रहुगण उपधार्य पुरुषान अधिवहत आहय वोढ़ार साधु अतिक्रमते किमिति विषम विहते यानमिति. So when they were walking like this, Bharat, he was very careful that he does not step on any ants or some creepers on the ground. So he was always looking in front of him and seeing that there is nothing on the ground, and therefore he was not walking properly, because then you have to carry the palanquin, you have to carry in the rhythm, so that the king does not get any jerk. But then there was no rhythm here, because he will see something and then he will jump. Also, he was not trained to carry this. It's like in the military, they have to walk in their rhythm, their harmony. These carriers also have to walk in a particular harmony, so that the person who is sitting has no jerky movements. But Bharat was not bothered about that. He was more bothered that he doesn't step on any ants or some other creepers creeping on the ground. So sometimes he will make a longer step, sometimes smaller, sometimes he will jump. So this was making jerks to the king who was sitting on top. And because he was a king, he could have immediately gotten angry. What is this nonsense? Why don't you walk properly? But because he was a very well-behaved king and he was also going to see a sage, so he was not so much in a lording over mood. So he gently said, "Fellows, what are you doing? Why don't you walk properly? I'm getting shaken." So that's what he said. Hey, Vodara, means the carriers, sadhu adhikramta, walk properly. Kimiti visama muhyate yana. Why are you carrying it unevenly? He just said like that. Just a simple warning. And kings, obviously they are not used to hear something back, or they are not used to that. They say something and it is not followed. King says something, immediately it has to be done. But here it did not happen like that. Because Bharat, he also remembered his past life. He has also been an emperor, bigger king than this. He was ruling all over India. This guy is king only of one small portion of India. So he was not bothered about what he said. Athata Ishwar Vachaha Sopalam Bham Upakarane Upayan Puriyat Shankit Manasa Stam Vigyapam Labhu. Put it in. Why?
Sanatan has fixed it at least 4 or 5 times. You want to use the reminders?
Then tell them to start the generator.
Tell them what?
Start the generator. Leave it, I think. I don't know, check from there. So, अथ ईश्वर वचः सोपालंभमुपाकर्ण्य उपाय तुरीयात् शंकित मनसस्तम विज्ञापयाम बभूव. So when the other carriers they saw that there is no effect on this fellow, he was still jumping like a monkey, not walking properly. So they became scared. They thought that now we will all get punished because he is making the mistake, and because of his mistake we all will be punished. So they started speaking to the king. They said, Navayam nardeva pramatta bhavan niyamanu patha sadhu eva vahama. I am adhuna eva niyuktopi na dhrutam brajati nanena saha vodhum hivayam pariyami. So they said that, O king, please know that it is not our mistake and we are not disregarding your order. But this new fellow has been used, he has been employed to carry, and he is the one who is not walking properly, and we cannot carry it along with him, it's not possible. So please do something. So they wanted to protect themselves. So there is a commentary here by Srimad Chakravarti. It says, Jnani maninam enam jnanineva parasti kritya krityashyami. Vahantam sibikam sviya katukti arth kritam munim gyatva raja varohi asu tushtava dasnispatam. So in the 10th canto there is this story that when he was carrying the Shibika or the Palaki, then the king spoke very harsh words, and then Bharat he spoke back. And then the king he realized that he is not an ordinary person, so he jumped down from the Palaki and tried to pacify Bharat whom he had offended. So Sri Vishnu Chakravarti he gives some nice comment here. Basically he talks about the grace of saintly people. Because we have read this before also, and this is one of the principles that bhakti comes only by the grace of devotees or by the grace of God Himself. There is no other way to get it. And all the grace is available all the time, but only some people can recognize it. And there are sadhus also, although not everywhere, but still they are there. And the real sadhus, they keep themselves hidden. They don't advertise, they don't make a show, because that is not their business. So Bharat Maharaj was also keeping himself hidden, as we read. When he met the robbers, he did not tell them that, come on, you should know I am a great sadhu. He didn't reveal himself. And he also did not give any instructions to them, because he did not see them fit to be instructed. So instructions should also be given only to a person who is qualified, means who can take it and make use of it, otherwise what is the point? So this is what he explains here in the commentary. Tadevam Sri Bharatah Kanpanyakadibhi Swapalakeshu Bhratradishu Tatprativeshu Teshu Chai Karmitvad Rajashu Api Kripam Chakara Eva Yato Bhukalo Api Tebhya Swadarshanam Dadav. So he says that previously he was living with his brothers, who were actually feeding him this useless chaff cake coming out from the seeds and some burnt food. And also his neighbors, who were always making fun of him, calling him dull-head, this, that. So he gave them also mercy in the form of being with them for a long time. He stayed with them for a long time. And that was also his mercy to them, but they never bothered about him to find out who is he, or does he really know something, or he is foolish. Because they were all karmis, they were absorbed in materialistic activities, they are rajasic, influenced by material desires. So he did them, he gave them grace just by being with them. And tathaiv vrushala raje durachar saktattvadati tamse swaghatke api kripam chakarev. And then he also gave his mercy to these robbers and the chief of the robbers. So how he gave the mercy? Because he didn't give any instructions to them. Also he never gave any instruction to his brothers. So his mercy was that because of him, the Devi Bhadrakalis, he became manifest. And these people had darshan of the Devi. And then they were killed by the Devi. And if Devi is killing them, they must benefit from that. When Krishna kills somebody, they become liberated. If Devi kills, they will not get liberated, but at least maybe they will become associated with Devi. So this way, this happened by the grace of Bharata only. So this is the grace he gave to people who are tamasic by nature. His brothers and neighbors, they were rajasic. And these robbers, etc., they were tamasic because they are engaged in tamasic worship and tamasic activities. But now another type of grace is going to come to the king who was eager for knowledge. This is the real grace. So yatastena api prakarena swasya devyasya sakshat darshanam janmantarepi tan mukti karanam karyamase. So he says that these tamasic people also got the grace because they got the direct vision of the Devi, and in the next life they will be on the path of liberation. तथैव रहुगणे ज्ञानित्वात् सात्विके राजत्व उचित रजसा शिविकां वाहति अपि कृपां चकार. And now he is going to give his grace to the king Rahugana, who was although sattvic by nature, but now he was more in the rajasic mood because he was also king and he was lording over. So even when he was actually carrying his shibika, his palanquin, he blessed him. So saintly people can bless sometimes by getting angry, sometimes by cursing. Like we read in 10th Canto, Dasa, he became angry at Nalkubar and Manigriva and cursed them to become trees. So his curse was a blessing to them because they became trees in the courtyard of Nandi Maharaj and they made darshan of Krishna. So saintly people, whatever they do, it is a blessing. So any association with a saintly person can only be a benefit to a people. So sometimes they may beat up somebody or slap or get angry or curse, and of course they can also give instructions out of love and affection, but in either way the blessing can come in so many different ways. So he says that he gave him the mercy even while carrying him on his shoulder. Now this is not the way to give mercy, but he blessed him. Tatra rajastamso prakashakatva bhavat satvasya tu prakashakatvat rahuganeva bhartasya bhakti jnanadi prakasha na pravaya. Now because the king, he was more situated in sattva and not overpowered by rajas and tamas, so his grace became manifest in the form of devotion and knowledge. Bhakti Gyan, the knowledge of bhakti was given to him and not to the other people. So that is because he was sattvic. Tadupakyanam arabdhe yathi. So to show this, Sukadeva Goswami begins this chapter. Paramhansattvena sarvatra tasya samyasya achityepi Mahabhagavatatvad kripa vyakya. So there are two types of sadhus, they are called Paramhansa and Bhagavat Paramhansas. So Paramhansas are equal to everybody. And then there are Mahabhagavatas, devotees. They can discriminate. So he says that this mercy is to be explained because he was a Mahabhagavat, he was a great devotee. So, Ishwaresu tadadhinesu balesesu dusatsu cha pramaitri kripa apeksha yakaroti samadhi. It is described in 11th Canto that when he is a Madhyam Mahabhagavata, then he makes friendship with some people, he neglects those who are envious. Ishwaresu tadadhinesu balesesu dusatsu pramaitri kripa apeksha. So the Lord, he does prema, and with devotees he makes friendship. With ignorant he gives mercy, and those who are envious he avoids them. So these are the four ways he behaves. So here he sees king that he is ignorant, but he is eager to get knowledge. So therefore he will instruct him. The other people were also ignorant, and they were not qualified to get his instruction. भरतस्य भक्ति ज्ञान वैराग्यादिकं भगवत कृपया सद्गुणी बभूव इति एतत् कथं ज्ञायते इति एतदर्थं रहुगुणोपाख्यानम् इति च केचिदाह. So some people explain that Bharat, when he was king before 2 births, when he was on the bank of Gandaki river, he was a devotee. But now they say that in this particular birth, his devotion, his knowledge, his renunciation became 100 times by the grace of the Lord. And that is the reason that Lord put him in that attachment to the deer. So he says to show that how his bhakti actually increased, how his knowledge grew, how he became more detached. This story of Jad Bharat is being told. This is the opinion of some people. Sindhu Savir Deshayor Nirpasya Tesham Shibika Vahanam Kulpatina Piva Pushtanga Sananango Balishtascha Prasbham Balat Kritam Yatha Syatata. So when this king was going and they needed the carrier to carry the palanquin, then the chief of the carriers, he forcibly caught Bharat. Looks like in the olden days kings were absolute authority, and anybody who worked under the king, they must be terrorizing people, because they could tell anybody and they were not afraid because they knew that they are connected to the king. It's like the police people. They are in power, so they exploit. So he was also exploiting. He caught Bharat by force, and not for any pay or anything, and he just engaged him in carrying the palanquin. And he saw him as strong, so he said, yeah, he can carry it. Hinsa pariharartham ishu matra pradesh avalokanaantaram eva gati staya hetu purushanam gatir na samahita na samyagahita ekarupa na bhuta. But because Bharat, he did not want to commit any violence to any living beings, so he was always looking 4 feet ahead if there is anything. And if he saw, because they are walking somewhere in the forest area, there are always some various types of creepers. So he was just avoiding stopping on them, and thus he was not able to match with the steps of other people. Ishwarasya ragyo vachah sopalambham shakshepam upayeshu samadan bheda dandeshu madhye turiyat chaturthat dandat. So there are 4 ways of dealing with people. One is called Sam, means making friendship. If you want someone to do something, then there are 4 techniques described. They are called Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed and Dand. So one is making friendship and then gently asking. And the second one is by controlling, by overpowering. And the third is by creating difference. You create problem for the person and he will come to you. And then you exploit. And if nothing works, then the 4th is punishment. If the person does not listen and any of these techniques fail, then you have to just punish. So that is called the Turiya, the 4th. So he says that these other carriers, they became afraid that we are simply going to get the 4th one, the danda, the stick. And there was also in charge with them. Maybe he was also carrying the stick. If somebody is not walking properly, he will probably poke him, because it was his duty. So they were afraid in their mind, and therefore they spoke to the king that please, navayam pramatta, that we are not crazy, we are not ill-behaved, we are just doing what you want us to do, but it is only this new fellow who seems to be the troublemaker. So it's not possible that we can walk with him. सांसर्गिको दोष एव नूनम एकस्यापि सर्वेषां सांसर्गिकाणां भवितुमर्हति इति निश्चित्य निशम्य कृपणवचो राजा रघुगण उपासित वृद्धो अपि निसर्गेण बलात्कृत ईषदुत्थितं मन्यु अविस्पष्ट ब्रह्म तेजसं जात वेद समीव रजसा आवृतं मतिराह. So the king, he thought that people become spoiled by the association. If 7 people are walking properly and one is not walking properly, then this one is going to spoil the others. And therefore it's my duty to fix it. And he also heard the statement of the other people who said that we are not making any mistake, it's only the new person. So although King Rahugana, he was well behaved, he has served senior people, he knew what is good etiquette, but he was also a king. And he was not used to somebody not listening to his order. He already said walk properly, and this fellow is still walking in the same way. So then he became overpowered by anger. Slightly he got angry. Not very angry, but felt irritated. Because he was sitting and he was probably hitting his head to the side. Because in the palanquin on the side there is a wood pole, so you can hit your head on that. People don't walk properly. So he could not recognize Bharat Maharaj, who was having Brahman effulgence, but it was covered just like fire in the ash. So if you make this fire with the kanda, and the cowden cake, and they make a lot of ash, and there can be fire inside, and outside you see the ashes. And you can step on it. So like that Bharat Maharaj was covered. His effulgence, his greatness was not visible. And therefore king could not recognize. And being overpowered by Rajoguna, out of anger, he made the following statements. Aho kastam bhata vyaktamuru parishranto dirgham adhvanam ekaiva uhivan suchiram nati piva nasananango jarsacha upadrito bhavan sakhe noeva parayete sanghatina iti bahu vipralabdho api avidya. So he was speaking in a sarcastic manner to him. He says, "Oh my dear brother, indeed you are very tired. Because you are carrying this palanquin alone for a long time. You must be tired. You are not very fat. Your body is not so good. And you are old fellow. You can understand. And therefore you are not able to walk properly, your friend. And ete sanghatina iti upadrito bhavan sakhe noeva prayete sanghatina iti bahu vipralabdho api avidya rachita dravya guna karma ashya swachara kalevare avastuni sansthan visheshe ham mama iti anadhyaropita mithya pratya brahma bhutas tushni siddhkam purvadha. So when the king was making fun of him like this, Bharat Maharaj, who was completely detached from his body, who was not identifying with his body at all, knowing that this body is just a conglomeration of material elements, and because of the guna and karma, and I am completely separate from it. So he neither identified with the body as I nor as mine. He kept himself completely separate because he was absolutely absorbed in the thoughts of God. So after hearing this sarcastic remark, he did not respond because he did not think that it is for him. This is for the body and I am not the body. It's like when they wanted to kill him, he did not protest, he did not say anything. He said, this is body, nobody can kill me. So he was completely situated in his own self. And he was just like you live in your house. So you know that you are not the house. So if somebody punches the wall of your house, you don't feel pain. Because you are not the house. So like that, somebody is saying something and he's looking at the body, he says, yeah, whatever you say is fine. It's not me, I'm not fat, really you're right. I'm old, because Atma is the oldest. And then he continued walking the way he was walking before. Didn't have any effect on him. So now obviously the king has to freak out. How long can he behave nicely? So Bhratariti Akshepa Abhiprayam. So Nisargena Rajatvad Rajasvabhavena Balatkrita Balatakar Vishayikrita Chatved Samagni. So naturally because he was king, so he became influenced by the Rajas and then he started speaking. But he did not say anything, he just kept quiet. So he says Bhrataramiti Akshepam Abhiprayam. So when he says Bhratar, brother, he is addressing him as brother, the king. So this is being sarcastic. Sanghatina Sangina Vipralabdha Viprita Lakshana Upashati. And these fellows are not helping you. I know you are alone carrying it. Like that. He was trying to make fun of him. Tena tvam na shranto asi yato adhanaeva niyojita. So he is giving the real meaning of it. He was saying you are tired. So the meaning is that actually you are not tired because you are just engaged right now. Ati piva bhavsi. When he said you are not fat, he said you are fat. Dridhangascha bhavsi, and you are stout, you are well built. Because he was saying opposite. So this is called Viprita Lakshana. You want to say something, you say opposite of that. So you want to criticize somebody, you praise him. So this is called Viprita Lakshana. So now he is giving the proper meaning of what he is saying. So Yuvaschasi, you are young, ete annetav sangina, they are all helping you. Tadapi viruddhatya bodhum na shaknomi. Iti mai rajani api dushtatam kim prakashayati. So he says, even though you are healthy, you are strong, you are not tired, you have been just engaged now, you are not alone, there are so many people with you, why you are not carrying this palanquin properly and disregarding me, I am the king. This is what he meant by this. Why are you behaving like a rascal? Vipralabdhopi toshnim uvaha. But he remained quiet, although the king was being very sarcastic. What is the reason? Tatra hetu avidya maya rachita dravyadyo yasmin tatra svacharam kalevre nayadhyaropito mithya pratyayena. The reason was that he was absolutely not identifying with the body. So whatever the king is speaking about the body, but he said, I am not this body, so he can do whatever he likes. He was also not afraid of punishment. He said, even if he punishes, he is going to punish the body, but I am not. So therefore he just kept quiet. Tatra dravyani bhutani guna indriyani. He says all these five elements, earth, water, fire, ether, they are making the body. And there are senses in it, karmani, punya, papani. Body is the outcome of good or bad deeds from the past life. Some good deeds, some bad deeds. Ashaya means antakaran, the inner mind. अवस्तूनि कलेवरस्य प्राधानिकत्वेन वस्तुत्वेपि स्वस्य तत्संबंधाभावादेवेति भावयतो ब्रह्मभूत. And this body was, he calls it as like inconsequential or inexisting, because not that it is not existing, but as far as Bharat is concerned, he is not identifying with it, so it's as good as not being there. Why? Because he was Brahmabhuta. So as in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Brahmabhuta prasannatma na sochati na kamshati. Samasaveshu bhutesu madhakti lakti gulam. But when a person is realized, then na sochati na kamshati. He does not grieve for anything, nor does he desire anything material. And he looks at everyone as equal. Somebody disrespects, he doesn't get angry. Somebody praises, he doesn't become happy. So man apmani tulya mitrari paksha. Men equal in man and apman, in praise, in respect and disrespect. So this is what he was actually showing by his behavior. यद्यपि भर्तस्य तत् शरीरं सुखदेवादीनामेव आपकृत्यत्वाद् अनश्वरं नित्यमेव, तदपि तस्य तदानीम् उत्पन्न प्रेमत्वादेव भगवन्तं विना अन्यत्र स्वदेहादौ ममत्वसम्भवात्. तदानीं तेन देहेन साक्षात् सेवया अलाभादौ औत्कण्ठ्यवृद्धियाति दैन्येन आह तु अस्य अनर्पणात् सर्वगत्यपि तत्र स्वदेहे prakritatva bhanamev. So he is making some very nice explanation, comment here. He says that actually his body was not material, Bharat's body. Just like the body of Sukdev, Narada Muni, their bodies are not material. They have spiritual bodies. So Bharat's body was also spiritual. And therefore there is no reason for him not to identify with the spiritual body. But the reason was that he was seeing that with this body, I am not able to serve the Lord directly. Because he was having prema in his heart. And this body should serve the Lord, but he was not able to do that. So, तदानीं तेन देहेन साक्षात् सेवाया अलाभात् औत्कण्ठ्य वृद्धि अतिदैन्येन आह तस्य अनर्पणात्. So therefore, just to increase the eagerness, out of humility, he speaks like that. सर्वज्ञत्वेपि तत्र स्वदेहे प्राकृतत्व भानमेव अतस्तत् सम्मत्या सुखदेवेनेपि तत् प्राकृतमेव. So although he was Brahman realized and he knew everything, but he was behaving with this body as if it is material. And therefore Sukadeva Goswami has also described it like that, although his body was not material. Savyakya cha yatha avidya maya na vihita dravya kun karmashi yatra tatha bhute swasya charme avsiste purpurebhyo nashtebhyo kalagrebhyo avsiste anasya. So therefore he gives a alternative meaning to this verse, and it shows that this body is not made of avidya, it is not made of material elements, and it is called as the last body, charma, because this was the last birth of Bharat Maharaj. So last in the sense that others were destroyed and this will last, this will never come to an end. So last in that sense, anaswara or indestructible. यद्वा सुष्ठु अचरमे अनिकृष्टे कलेवरी कर्मारब्धत्व भावाद वस्तुनि परम सत्य. Or he says that this body is not the outcome of any karma, being pure and real. Samyak avasthan vishesho vaikuntha loko yasya. This is meant to be situated in Vaikuntha. Tasmin api premotth danyad danyodayad eva But out of humility he was not identifying even with that body. And therefore he said that I am not this body, and the body does not belong to me. So that's the meaning. Otherwise, he was actually spiritual. So we will stop here. Now we will see that how, after hearing these words of King Rahugana, then Bharata finally he decides that this king needs to be blessed. After all, he was going to take instructions from Kapila. So he thought that he didn't have to go so far. He can get instructions right here. So we will start teaching him. Very nice instructions. We will read that tomorrow. There is any question?
I have a question about this spiritual body again, to understand that. So he out of humility, although his body was spiritual, he was regarding this body like
Material.
material. And in the same also, like, I want to clarify what is material, what is spiritual, and that this
Material is made of matter and spiritual is made of...
this is general.
So what do you want to clarify?
But now this spiritual body looks like a material body, maybe.
Yeah, obviously if it is not looks... here it has to look like that, otherwise how he will... nobody will see him.
And then it functions like a material body.
Yeah, it functions like that. It's like Krishna says that Janam Karam Chame Divyami Yogati Tattva. That my birth, my activities, they are divine, but they appear like material.
So then Rahula, he will not change his body
Yes.
because it's permanent.
Yeah, he will not change. Because if it is spiritual, there is no question of
Doesn't
change.
change. It's permanent. And then about this qualification, because he met different type of people and different influenced with different gunas. And then he decided to give his higher blessing only to the king, because he is situated in sattva, and then because he is eager to know. So then the qualification of has
Yeah, because what is the use of singing a song in front of a buffalo?
yeah.
You're not going to understand. So if he has to give these instructions to these robbers, what will they understand? What will they understand?
I don't think they will understand.
Hmm?
But also you mentioned also the kind of people who maybe they would like, but they are not qualified. So then what is the real qualification?
The qualification that king was already going to hear philosophy.
So then the eagerness to know.
And that's why I'm saying, if somebody is not eager to know, what is the use of telling him? Somebody is not hungry, you give him food, what will he do with the food? Same thing. Instructions are also food for the mind. If somebody is not interested in listening to you, and you unnecessarily give instruction, he may even become upset with you. And that story of the bird and the monkey. Yeah, there was rain and the bird was sitting in the nest and the monkey was shivering. And the bird was saying, "What is this? You have a hand, why can't you make your house? I don't even have a hand and there." So the monkey got so angry, took the nest and tore it apart. So this is what happens to give instruction to a foolish person. उपदेशो हि मूर्खाणां प्रकोपाय न शान्ति Paripanam bhajanam kevalam vishwaram. If you give instruction to foolish people, they will only become angry at you. As Jesus Christ, they crucified him. So it's not intelligent to do that. Like giving milk to a snake, he increases poison. Okay.